As a reminder, so during the previous session, we explained that there were different designers, okay? So I will try to summarize this during the live demo, but just keep in mind that there are currently 4 types of designer provided in the product, okay? You have the homepage designer, the custom page designer, the search result designer, and the reader designer. The reason why there are 4 designers provided is because each of those designers have his own specificities and his own rendering context. Okay? For instance, here on the reader designer, you are currently rendering a document as opposed to custom page where there is no publication involved in the page. There are other things, okay, if you will, but there are no currently displayed documents. And same thing for the search result. Currently, when you design a search page, the context is that you have facets, you have keywords, you have results, but you don't have a publication as you would have in the reader, okay? And same thing for the custom, you don't have the context involved in the search result. That's why there are 4 results. The reason why I'm explaining this is because when you will create a custom component, you will at some point leverage variables. Okay, so what are variables and what are the variables available to you? A variable, for instance, there is a variable, namely user, okay, which provide you an access to the current connected user. I will show an example, letting you understand how useful that can be. But basically, when you create a component at some point, let's suppose you want to display the username. You need to have a variable providing you with the username. So this variable is available, as you can see on this slide, in any context, as opposed to the request and the result variables, which are not available in the other context. They are available only on search page and result template, because, as I explained in the previous slide, this is the only context where a request or a result is available. And same thing for the reader page. You have variables that are available on the reader page designer and the topic template because they are very specific to this running context. Okay. So I left in those slides where there are tricky or key information, I left a link to the actual documentation of Lutopics, helping you to really see what are the available variables and how to use these variables in detail. And this PDF obviously will be shared. This slide will be shared. So there is also something that you need to comprehend, is a difference between all the components available. So earlier I told you that there were different designers. In each one you have different contexts leading you to different variables, but there is something more subtle. The custom components themselves come in different flavors, okay? So basically here I try to summarize the 4 kinds of custom components you get. You will see that's very simple. That might be strange at first, but don't worry. I will re-explain this later during this session. There are 4 kinds of custom components. The one I was just talking about, the custom component, but there is also another one which we call live. Okay, live is a special kind of custom component allowing you to access to what I call live dev capabilities. Live dev capabilities being the option as opposed to add the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript inside the component itself. In fact, there is a mechanism allowing you to store the content of this HTML, CSS, JavaScript on your laptop. So you can change the content in a regular editor locally and so if you refresh the page where this live editor has been added, you will be able to see the changes you are making on files that are stored locally. Okay, so basically I create my code locally, I refresh my page, I see the result, I want to do some change, I can apply those changes on the files that I'm hosting locally on my laptop, and then if I refresh the page, the web browser will pull the content thanks to this live component from my local browser. So this is the key difference between custom component where the code is stored inside Fluid Topics, inside the designer itself, and the live component where the code is stored on my laptop. We see that there is a life cycle to get from a live component to a custom component and so on, but just keep in mind that custom component will host the code inside Fluid Topics as opposed to live component where the code is hosted on my laptop. Okay, code could be stored elsewhere, but just keep in mind that the code is stored on your laptop for now. There is also here custom page and live page. Small difference. Those are behaving exactly as I explained before. Okay, so those are custom component and live component, but those components are available only in the reader page and provide a specific variable which is named current page. Okay, so if at some point you need to leverage this current page inside your design, you must use either a custom page or a live page. The reason why they are provided this way is because for technical reason and the way in design for different technical reasons. Just keep in mind, to keep it simple, that for technical reasons it's provided as is. Okay, let's focus on live component. I will try to show you now how live component works, so you can understand exactly how you can leverage this yourself, and then I will try to make some kind of a demo. So live component, as shown earlier, is a component named live. You drag and drop it on your design, just like you would do with any regular custom component. But here, the component is not expecting you to provide the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript for the component to host in Fluid Topics, but it will expect you to configure here in this slide. It is showing the URL. So basically, the code content of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript will be hosted in different files. So you have to have a web server hosting the source somewhere. Typically, the developer would have a local web server, okay, but it's not mandatory, but that's the easiest. And that's why here you are provided with an example using Node.js. Okay, so this is a simple way to get JavaScript, a web server running. You may use another solution using a Python script or JavaScript or script running Java, or other solution can work. This one is provided as an example, but it works very well. And basically here we just have a tool that you need to install, which name is npx, with an extension which is HTTP server. So basically when you run NPX, you will have this HTTP server, and basically here we add few options, just like the running port, okay? By default, the web server must run on 8080, okay? And then you provide a directory where are hosted the source, okay? So I will do an example to make it easy for you to understand. And obviously, the different sources that the live component will try to access to will be stored in different files. Those files must be named page.html, script.js, and style.css. More detail obviously are available in our documentation on doc.freetopics.com. And again, the link is here. Okay. So now I will try to cover two different subjects, which are how to leverage FreeTopics API and how to leverage third-party libraries before entering to an actual demo of what you can do with the custom component. FreeTopics obviously provide a lot of APIs. Okay, FreeTopics is an API-first platform, so everything that you can do with the UI is available as an API, and especially browsing content, searching content, and so on is something that is available as an API. To make it easy, FreeTopics comes with a JavaScript helper. So this is a method that you can call. And by calling this method, you will be provided with an easy access to the APIs. Okay. So for instance, here I am creating, I am instantiating a variable which I named FT-API. Okay. With this piece of code here, await new, and here I am calling an object. I'm instantiating an object, and this object provides me with a different method. Among them, okay, there is a get method. So when you have an API that you want to leverage, and this API is leveraging the get verb, for instance, here, you will just call the method the according method, and you will provide this method with the API route. Okay, so for instance, here I am trying to list all the maps as an example. And then the third step is to process the response you will get. So here I'm creating a variable named maps where I have collected all the maps available. And then here I'm just creating some kind of loop where I can do something with a map. Okay. So basically, you just need to create this FT API variable that will allow you to query FreeTopics in a very easy way and process the response in an easy way. Same thing for the third-party libraries. Okay, you can use third-party libraries inside custom component, but it takes a step. You need first to import the library inside the component so you can use it. So typically, what you would do to import this library, there are different manners, but this one is suggested here in this slide because that's typically what I do myself. Here you have to create one element we call script, add the link to this element, and then add the element to the component. If there are CSS also involved in this library, you can do the same thing using a style element. And then you can just implement your code and make sure before implementing the code that the library has been loaded this way. So the provided example are following this methodology. I'm not an expert. There might be other better options available to you, but this one typically would work in most of the cases. Okay, let's review a few examples, and then I will switch to a live demo. Okay. So what we can do with custom components. So this is provided as simple example. Of course, the limit would be your imagination. So you could display using the user variable I told you about the username to welcome the user with a greeting, hello user username. Okay. You could also list publications. So obviously, Free Topics provides a component to list publication on home pages and on custom pages. But sometimes you want to achieve a display that is not available out of the box provided by the provided component. For instance, here I have displayed my content in 3 columns. This is not something that is achievable, at least to the extent of my knowledge, with the existing component. So why not? You want to display your publication or selected or subset of selected publications in 3 columns. You can do it using a few lines of code. I will show you exactly how it works. You could also want to have a carousel. This is something that is also frequently asked among our customers. A carousel is very easy using a library. So this is an example of displaying a result list inside a carousel provided by a third-party library, namely glide.js. Others could be used, of course. You could also, on the home page, for instance, display the library being the bookmarks, the saved searches, and the collections. So those are obviously available in the menu My Library, so the user can go there. But sometimes we had this use case where we had to display bookmarks, searches, and collection on the homepage itself. This is also doable thanks to the APIs provided by Free Topics, and I will show you I will show you an example of that. On the search page itself, you could want to display a breadcrumb. So I'm not sure if you can see here because it is in gray and it's not very, the color, it might be not well chosen. Sorry about that. But you could want to display a breadcrumb, sorry, showing here the document title and the parent topic names, for instance. This is also something that is doable using a custom component. Also something that you may want to do is to display, as you may know, on the may or may not know, the admin, there is, when you are on the reader, when you are on the designer reader, if you want to access to what exists on the classical reader, the metadata and the ability to view the access rights, the group that are allowed to view a document and so on. There is this existing admin reader view, so you can switch. I will show you this as a reminder. You can switch to the admin reader. So from the design reader, you can switch to the admin reader, so you get access to those components, so those items, so delete documents, the group visibility, and the metadata, okay? But at some point, you may want to have an easy access to the topic and the reader page and on the publication metadata from the designer itself. So I made an example showing that, leveraging a nice library named data tables, okay? So I've done this as an example that I'm going to share with you in a minute for the reader page and the topic metadata, so inside a template, topic template, namely. Also, you can create custom pages involving publication lists, again, using data tables, okay? So basically, you can create a list of publication in the HTML form. Something that is displayed here is metadata. So you can select what should be the publication metadata displayed. plus you get a search engine and the ability to export using either Excel or just copy a plain copy of this table content. Again, using data table libraries that make things easy. And finally, what I will cover here during the demo, the latest step will be the custom the custom page. So for the live dev examples that I will share with you. All those examples, for all those examples, we provide you with the code here in this GitHub. So if you go to github.com/antidote, you will see one project named Feature Showcase, where you will be able to access to all the examples provided here. But to make things easy, we created a Fluid Topics tenant. Okay, so here it is named Fluid Topics Showcase custom component. And inside this, in this Fluid Topics tenant, we created examples. We added those examples, plus we added a feature where you can see what are the examples and where to find the code. Okay. So here we have some page. I told you about this greeting, this latest publication, this carousel, this my library thing. So basically, if you go to this website, and I will share right now before I forget in the chat. This URL. Yeah. So basically, if you go to this Fluid Topics tenant and you click on this button here on the left, you will have something showing you, it's a tour, as we call it, showing you the different example and a link to the code. Okay, so for instance, here we have our first example that I called greetings, and this example shows an example, and this sample shows an example of a user variable usage. And if you click on view code here, you will be redirected to this github.com/antidote feature showcase, to the actual code used by this component. So you can see the HTML used, as well as the JavaScript used, and to some extent the CSS, but yeah, it's very raw. I just focused here on providing you with some code examples. So the design is very basic. I should have said ugly, but that's not the purpose of today, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's it. So as you can see, you can just browse between the different samples provided to you. So you can see here the different examples that exist. Okay. You have the same thing on the search page. So for instance, here it is letting me know that the breadcrumbs are available only for topics. So if I try here this link, I am redirected to an API, to a system, this very same search page by filtering by API. So I can see here the support guide that creating an API is a child of a book named support guide and a child of a topic named supporting developer. If I click here, I have access to a step tour showing me the link to the code. Okay, so you can have access to this breadcrumb and get this code and add it to your design if you want. And finally, on the reader page itself, I've made some links to the map metadata code and the topic metadata code. Okay, and basically it works like this. Here it displays the map metadata in two different tables, one for the built-in metadata and one for the custom metadata. You can search if I enter the system, publication, so I see here all the Flutopics metadata, built-in metadata containing publication, and I could have also filtered by here to filter the custom metadata. And for the topic metadata, I just chose here to display all them, but I added a type column. So here I have my built-in metadata, and here my custom metadata to provide you with two different options. So again, the code is available. For instance, here we have an example of third-party library import. Then how do you use this third-party library? So as you can see, there is very few code to create this table here. Okay, because I've just leveraged what is provided by Flutopics. I will show you exactly how I did so. But basically, just here, I have created the script and link. I think I made a mistake in the slide. I said style, but it is here link. So I've created here a script and link objects, and then I just added the link to this data table, and I have added the data table to my component, and then I've just leveraged the component, the data table itself. The only thing I did here is I leveraged a map variable being something provided out of the box by Flutopics as a variable. Again, this is namely this here map variable. Okay. So I will show you in the real life how this looks like. So inside the designer, I will go to here this reader page. So here I have my reader page. So what I did here in the reader page, I have leveraged here, there is this icon, and this is in fact a modal. Okay, so I have used the modal, okay, to display this small pop-up, and inside this modal, I have added some code that is exactly what I've shown you in GitHub. Okay, so this example. So I've done this for all the components. So basically, you have access to this Flutopics tenant. You have access to those examples. You will have access to my PDF, those slides. You will have access to Flutopics documentation. The only thing I need to show you is how to use the live component. And to do so, I will just do a live demo. So live demo. Okay. So sorry about that. Just need to, yeah. So I've told you that live and custom component are almost the same. You need to drag and drop a component, add it to your design. The only difference here is the content of the HTML, the JavaScript, and the CSS must be pulled from somewhere. They are not stored in Flutopics. They are stored on, let's say, for now, my laptop. To do so, you need to have a web server running, okay? And here we have an example. So let's use this example, okay? So here I have a web server running, okay? So I have the command to run a web server. So basically, I have my npx command, HTTP server, cores, C1, port, etc. Exactly what is provided in the documentation. So no surprise. Now I have something that I must pass is a directory. So directory being the directory where my sources are stored. Okay. So for example, here I have somewhere on my laptop a folder named live component. Inside live component, I have two subfolders, which is 01 hello world and 02 another example, which is just a dummy example, so you can understand what I'm trying to explain. And here, my web server will run, and the root of my web server will be live component, okay? So basically, if I take this, and I will put, if I do this, now if I open my web browser here, this is something I already prepared. Here on the root directory of my web server, I have two folders displayed, which are 01 hello world and 02 another example. And if I click here on 01 hello world, I have here access to my paged HTML, JavaScript, CSS, I'm sorry, script.js and style.css. So here I have a path, and this path here can be provided to Flutopics. So Flutopics will pull resources from there, okay? So let's take a new page. So we'll call demo, obviously. Let's take a live component. Okay, let's double click. So now it is telling me to configure the URL. Okay, since I have my source under hello world, I provide hello world. And now, as you can see, it is pulling the hello world from my computer. So why this is interesting? Let's open this as a draft page. Okay, so I have here my component pulling sources locally. So now if I do any change, okay, here for instance, instead of saying hello worlds, I want to say hello everyone. Okay, I have now made a change in my code, and now I can just refresh directly this page, making things easy for you to author your code. And at the end, when you're happy with what you can do, what you have done, sorry, you can go back here in the design and do something interesting, which is the conversion. So basically, a live component would become a regular custom component in one click. Okay. Obviously, here this operation cannot be reversed because the URL will be lost. If I do so, my component is now a regular custom component with the latest version of the source that were pulled dynamically when I push the convert button. Okay.